Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. As the holidays approach, we find some of us may not be enjoying them as much as we used to, especially when our families were together. On the program today is someone who's going to be talking about that very thing when it comes to perhaps mothers or fathers who are in situations where they are estranged from their adult children. She's going to be offering compassionate help for parents of estranged children, as well as go over the emotional challenges they face, like feelings of loneliness and abandonment. Her suggestions are based on the insight of more than 9,000 parents of estranged adults. Her book is Done with the Crying, Help and Healing During the Holidays for Mothers of Adult Children. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Sherry McGregor. Sherry, thank you for being back on the program.
Oh, I'm excited to be here, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Now, give our listeners an idea of your background and your experience when it comes to something like this.
Well, I am a mother of 5. My husband and I have been married for more than 30 years. We're a real stable family. We lived in the same house this whole time. We moved here when my now estranged son, who has been estranged for a decade, was just a few weeks old. And my other children are still in contact, but he has chosen to estrange from our family. And so that is where I first started learning about estrangement. And I guess my background in my education, I'm a certified life coach. I have a master's degree in human behavior. And those things sort of helped me to help other people and help myself, first of all, and then feel the need to really share that because there was just nothing out there that helped people recover from the experience. And so that's a little bit about my background.
Now, as I was saying earlier, the holidays can be a rough time for a lot of people. So let's talk about that, for instance, and, for our listeners out there, how they can, kind of navigate this.
Okay, sure. Yeah, you mentioned the holidays are hard for a lot of people, and I think they are because it isn't just estranged parents. But so I think that kind of helps with perspective to think, well, the holidays aren't always this Norman Rockwell, wonderful, magnificent, and magical time for everybody. And so, it isn't just estranged parents, but I think especially for newly estranged parents, or maybe this is the first holiday season, it's the worst because, you may not know if this is going to last. You may be in shock. Just this week, I know of 3 families that are facing brand new estrangements. And in one family, a son and his wife who have the parent's first grandchild, they sent a text and said, we're going to take a step back from the family, and so who knows if this will last. Those parents are thinking, well, surely it won't. 2 others that I know of received, a no-contact letter, which is kind of like the old Dear John letter that used to be something that was, a joke, except for I've seen them, and I think they're probably a lot colder. Those letters are often filled with psychobabble that imposes some sort of set of rules or boundaries on families that are just so shocking. So for those families that it's brand new, they may even already have plans set up. There's traditions that go on for holidays, who goes to whose house, who brings what dish, and so suddenly they're faced with these empty chairs. And so sometimes that means, what do I say when Grandma or Aunt Ruby asks where these missing people are? And that's difficult because parents may be thinking, no, this isn't going to last. It's just a little phase. Because I think that is what most people think when something like this happens. They don't really understand this is an estrangement, and this is something that's very common and can last and endure. And so most parents, I think, don't want to say much at all and possibly get people upset, or, they are in such a state of shock, and yet they've got all these people coming to the house, and so they've got to carry on. And so, just to let them know you can carry on. You will get through the holidays. Whoever's listening, you are stronger than you think. You can get through it and beyond it. And one of the things that I think is important for people that are facing these fresh ones, and even people that maybe you have different relatives coming this year, or people that are going to ask that you maybe put off earlier, is to sort of make a plan and to sit down and really think. Because when we're prepared and we have a plan, then we can be calmer. And we can just feel better about, okay, here's what I'm going to say. And so, we know most of our relatives fairly well, and we know what they're going to ask, and we know what we might be able to say. And if we don't, we're going to come up with some things. So if parents aren't ready for an onslaught of questions or the hurt feelings or the worry that might, or even the put-offs that they might get if they tell the whole truth. Because a lot of times if you say, this is an estranged, people are like, oh, no, he'll get over it. And those things are hard to even listen to and hear because often they're not true. We recognize when people say them that they don't understand the situation. And it's hard to explain to somebody who's never been through it or been around it. And so, I suggest that people think of ways that they can answer questions. And so they have those ready. In my book, I have a series of ready answers for this sort of thing. But, come up with something that helps you, whether that's, and make it something you can live with. In my situation, family kind of knew because there was a wedding involved several months earlier that suddenly we weren't going to. And so the family already knew. But in many cases, the family doesn't know, and maybe the parents don't want to say it all. So, I'm not advocating lying, but if you can say something just to put people off because you don't know, you don't understand, this is confusing to you too. Maybe you just say, oh, he had other plans with his wife's family today. I wish they could be here, but I'm not going to let that spoil my day. I'm so glad to see you. And then you just change the subject. And so, of course, it depends on the circumstances, but just having a plan really, really helps. So really two main things with that. Have a plan on what to say, have something ready to change the subject, and no parent of an estranged child wants to go and be the center of attention about something so sad and pull the whole rest of the family down. It is the holidays. Everybody wants to enjoy them. So come up with something, and then you can feel good about that. Wish he could be here. He knows we all miss him, but let's have fun. So how you doing about that project? Or how's your daughter doing in her new job? Or whatever, just to shift the focus. And if you handle it with grace and a smile, people are often ready to move on and talk about themselves anyway. So, you can enjoy the holiday too. And then one more thing I would say about holiday events is have an exit plan. Because if you have that sort of in your back pocket, we're leaving right after dinner, or I can signal my husband, or whatever it is, committed people who are in committed relationships, we often, we know how to sort of give the look, and so that can be a comforting thing too, to just know I've got an exit plan here, and you can feel comfortable that if you do feel the need to leave, then you can get out of there. So those two things, first off the bat, I would recommend.
Right on. So it sounds like, having a plan with a situation like this and dealing with it gracefully. I think perhaps people have a preconceived notion showing up at a gathering where the estranged children may not be there, that the whole time is going to be spent, centered on that. That's the way they feel about it. But in fact, as you're saying, is if they ask about it, you just, they weren't able to make it, or whatever it is, they have other plans, or even being honest about the whole thing. We haven't talked in a while. They've kind of doing their thing, and I'm doing mine. So what's for dinner kind of a thing, and you just kind of move on. So.
Yeah, and it really does depend on the situation and the people, and, how much people know or don't know. And a lot of times I think we're the only one who doesn't have a family member coming, or, but that is one of the things that I think is hard about holidays as our families grow, is that some of them aren't going to make it. and maybe they're going to go to their in-laws, or they're just not coming for whatever reason. And so it's not that unusual. It's just not that unusual that not every single person is there. So there is a way to sort of gracefully get out of that. And if you handle it gracefully, other people, they follow your lead, don't they?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Now, let's go ahead and talk about people who are alone during the holidays. What are the statistics of that? Because it's pretty alarming to realize this is happening more often than people think it is.
Yeah. I want to get back to perspective about the holidays in a minute, but let's talk about that. So that is one thing about perspective, is that sometimes we might feel like if we're alone, or even in a couple alone, and we're not going to be with our kids this year or whatever, or even extended family, we might feel like we're the only ones. And it is so far from the truth. When I started looking up statistics about this, it surprised me. And but then again, if you put it into a web search, alone for the holidays, it's not just parents. It's so many people across the spectrum of age. So there are tons of people alone for the holidays, and it's just not unusual at all. But, of course, we have those lovey-dovey scenes on TV. We've got the Hallmark movies, which I love, but they can maybe enhance those feelings of being alone and being the only one. But I did look up some statistics. The Pew Research Center recently reported that there are 12 million people over the age of 65 in the U.S. who live alone, and statistics about people with estranged adult children range from like around 8 up to 20%, in some cases even more, depending on what the research is and what the criteria is for estrangement, etc. But imagine, how many of those people who are alone for the holidays, if just 10% of that 12 million over 65 who live alone were also estranged, then that would be 1.2 million who could be alone, away from their children for the holidays. And if you widen that out, the number of married couples over 65 in the U.S., and the number gets even bigger. And according to a report by the Administration on Aging, in 2016, there were 49.2 million over the age of 65. So if you imagine 10% of them suffered estrangement and were alone, the numbers could really be in the millions. And if you lower the age threshold, there's like 69 million over the age of 60. So if 10% of them were alone, or 8, between 8 and 20, we'll just say 10, that'd be 6.9 million who could be alone for the holidays or suffering estrangement at least. And then lower it even more, over the age of 50 who live alone, there's 1 in every 11 people. That was according to the most recent U.S. Census report. So although I've never been able to find a solid statistic that says how many people are alone for the holidays, if you look at the numbers of people who live alone that I just went through, it's safe to say that in the U.S. it could very well be millions. And so, again, that perspective, you're thinking, well, I'm all alone and I'm the only one, because that's what it may feel like. But you're not. You're not the anomaly. So, don't think like that.
Yeah, it can be difficult almost thinking that you're the only one, but when you realize there are others out there, you feel probably a little bit of relief from that. And then it's kind of like, well, how did you, kind of get through this sort of a thing?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I often hear from other parents of estranged adult children when they come across my book or my website or my forum at rejectedparents.net, where people do peer support, or my Facebook page. They're just so shocked. I hear from people all the time who've been estranged for a very long time, and they think they were the only one. And so there is a comfort in that. And yes, people can then get together and talk about it and not feel so alone. And, of course, if people don't want to be alone for the holidays, they don't have to be. I mean, there's all sorts of events for people in cities all over America. If you just search holiday events and senior citizens, and, maybe that's, I'm just assuming a lot of the people who are of the parenting age are, 50 or beyond. But there's all sorts of events, and, senior centers put on events. There's organizations like the Optimist Club that does a gala every year here locally where I live. And there's a lot of people that are alone and go to those events just to socialize and meet other people. And like you said, then they can compare notes. And so it's not, it's just, there's no shame in it. There's no shame in it. It's doable. And I was going to talk about just perspective at this time of year. Another thing about that is that, we can start to take charge of how we view these. So if we're thinking we're alone, we're dreading the holiday, that's not good. It's just not good to dread things. And we can take charge of our lives and of this season. I mean, relatively short in the scope of a year. It's a relatively short time period. So, just noticing that, just taking notice, okay, it is just a short time period instead of, oh my goodness, because everywhere you go, it's just holiday, 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 and it can start to feel like it'll just go on forever, endlessly, but it really doesn't. We get through it. We can fill our time, and like I said, people are a lot stronger than they think they are, and if we can give ourselves things to look forward to during the holidays or after the holidays, that whole idea of anticipation is just so good for our well-being, just the idea of looking forward. I mean, there is research about that shows that having something to look forward to. So again, it comes down to, making a plan. And if that's during the holidays, it doesn't have to be huge things, even just a walk. Seemingly inconsequential things can take on a better perspective for us and make us feel more alive, more involved, just better in general. I went walking this morning, and I hadn't been for about a week, and we have just gotten over a really, really heavy rainstorm for a few days. And so what I noticed here was, here where I live, at the end of summer, all the native greenery is just dry and dying away. And this morning I noticed the new growth. This is the time of year that the new growth starts. And so, if you just notice something like that, you can start to feel like, okay, well, seasons change. They come to an end, and there's a rebirth to a new season. And I started thinking, oh, yeah, we're close to the end of the year. And we're going to be starting a brand new year. And so you can sort of apply it to your own self. And when I go walking tomorrow, I'm going to look for more growth. And so that'll give me something to look forward to and then think about later. Another thing about that, I was thinking about how children, when they have something to look forward to, they'll count down 5 more days till we do that, or 6 more days till Christmas, or whatever, and they'll even X off on the calendar. And I think as we get older, we don't anticipate things as much and really draw those out and enjoy them. So it's just good to have things to look forward to. There's a scene in the Grinch movie, and I always think about it, the one with Jim Carrey, where he is looking at his calendar, and he's thinking, oh, Monday, I'm going to feel sorry for myself, and Tuesday, some other bad thing. And really, it comes down to a shift in our thinking, and we have a big control over that to a large extent. And so just finding something to look forward to is a good thing. And I did also want to say about just our perspective on the holidays is that they change anyway. When we're kids, the holiday experience is completely different than when we're adults. When we have a young family, it's different than when our kids are older. And so the holidays change throughout the years anyway. Different traditions are done, and we learn to adapt. And, flexibility is such a good thing, and it's something where we really do have to oil the ability to flex. it's like our bodies get rigid if we don't move around. Well, it's the same as with our attitudes. And so I recently did an article at the website, rejectedparents.net, and it was on flexibility, and it started with Oktoberfest. And that's something that is so big here now that I thought, what is that? I didn't know that much about it. And it's like 200 years old now. But in the history of it, it had to change so many times based on what was going on, wars, famines, different leaders that came in, and yet it prevailed. They changed different things that took place, but it's prevailed. And so we can too, We can change, and change can be a really good thing.
No doubt about that. That's for sure. What other tips would you have?
Oh, well, so some of the people that have talked to me about what they're doing, some of the parents of estranged adult children, volunteer work. Some people like to do photography. I have another website. It's called balanceandjoy.com. It's actually my life coaching website, and I don't take clients currently, but I do put articles up there from time to time, and it's about mindful photography. And that's been a real popular thing among some of the parents of estranged adult children because it's just it changes your focus, and you're looking for something good to focus on or something to think about. I heard from a woman this week who is estranged from her one and only son, and she's in her 70s, and she told me that she was going to be doing some volunteering at a local charity that does, a big Thanksgiving meal for those in need, and so she'll derive a lot of satisfaction out of that, and she won't be alone. So there are a lot of things to do in organizations that truly need people to help them. Even if it's just calling a friend that recently suffered a loss, then maybe the two of you share a meal or you take a meal over or anything like that. I think people can spend, even if they decide that they're not, going to go to any event, if they can spend their time wisely, maybe you sit down and write letters or cards to the people who would love to hear about how they maybe made a difference in your life. So many times we don't tell people who have been really important in our lives, and maybe we even regret that later. And so, why not reach out and touch people in a special way? If you have time on your hands, find a way to use it. I do want to say that since I have embarked on this journey, first by being thrown into estrangement and not by choice, and then through the recovery and writing the book, I just had no idea how many people I would come into contact with, and our paths would cross. And I just receive emails daily, and some of them are just so beautifully written and expressive of the emotions they feel, and I just appreciate those so much. I just want to make sure that people know that. I try to answer them, but I can't answer everyone. I wish I could. Life gets in the way sometimes. But if you have that ability to write, you could put it to good by if writing cards to people or there's even services out there like there's one that's Operation Gratitude where people can write to service members. And I think that's operationgratitude.com. And so, there's just so many things that we can do with our time and help. And maybe if you think about it, this time period in a new way, you have more time. You're not as committed to a family. Then there are things that you can do. There are some services that I wanted to tell people about. If they are lonely, there's a pen pal service in the UK. There's a friendship line, a telephone line for people over 60 who just need to talk, and that's through the Institute on Aging in the U.S. There's a hotline that's called the Silver Line in the UK, and these are just warm, they call them warm lines, not necessarily hot lines. It's not necessarily a crisis, and, there are those too, but these are warm lines because there's people out there that just want to talk, So people might be surprised what they find if they start looking around. There's just so many services, and maybe they take advantage of the service now, but then maybe they later help with those services or, find a way to give back to those. So, I do think it's important, and I want to emphasize that people really need to think about what it is they really want for the holiday period, because sometimes people complain that they're all alone for the holidays, but really when they think it through, they don't want to be with other people. Sometimes it is good to recognize, I think I'm just going to take a quiet time this holiday, and that's okay too. It's okay to know what you need, and if you don't want to go out, don't. There's plenty to do and that could be productive in your cave time, even if that's just, reflecting. And I say cave time because I recently wrote an article on the last day of October, and I called it Going Batty. And I built it around this picture that I took of a bat that I just happened to come across in town one day. And it was this little photogenic, I think it was a baby, so cute. But, cave time or cocooning time, the time of solitude, that's okay. If that's what you need. And that article was so popular. It got a lot of comments. So I know that it resonated with people because people said, yeah, I do sometimes just need to get away and clear my head and sort of have that time to maybe even feel grief and process the emotions that go with that. And that's okay. That time could even be used, that solitude, for the new year. That it makes it a great time to get started on shaping the new year for yourself. So the holiday season, okay, everyone else is running around buying gifts and eating food, and you've got a whole new clean slate that you can get a fresh start on. And I did want to mention to your listeners that I have a workbook that was released just yesterday. It's called the Done with the Crying Workbook for Parents of Estranged Adult Children. And it's really intended for those who've already read Done with the Crying, maybe done the exercises, but they want to do them again, which a lot of people do, or for those who had the ebook or listened on audio. And the workbook is bigger. It has more space so people can really dig in and get to work on shaping their lives. So, this might be a good time of year to think about that and use it for the new year and make some new goals for ourselves. Our lives are just so full of rich experience and memory.
That's true. They really are. And it's funny because we've actually done a segment or two over the years about the holidays, specifically changing routine, and changing tradition, shaking it up a little bit, and you take a look at something like this, and maybe this, as strange as it seems, is an opportunity for you to do that very thing.
Yes, I so agree. And really, that's just a shift in your thinking. You can set the sadness aside for now because, frankly, there's very little you can do about it. People want to think that, well, you're going to reach out, you're going to say sorry, and oftentimes all of those efforts don't work anyway, and you can only control yourself.
Exactly. Now, Sherry, again, it's been wonderful to have you. And for the listeners out there, if you go on YouTube and look Done with the Crying and Beyond 50 Radio, it's a huge thread, and you'll realize that there is a lot of conversation on your talk here from people who are reaching out. Sometimes you get idiots in there. There's, I'm going to blame the parents. Well, that's fine, and I just get rid of those guys. But most of the time I tell them, unless you have something that you want to contribute here, go somewhere else and bug those guys. But we rarely get that. And a lot of times people are even saying, I'm going to go out and get the book, that kind of a thing. So the fact that there's a workbook will certainly work that into these particular YouTube talks that we've had and let people know about it. But in the meantime, if they're listening right now, where's a website they can go to where they can get more of that kind of information?
I just put up a little blurb about it yesterday, which is on the, you'll find it right on the front page. If you scroll down just a little bit at my website, which is rejectedparents.net, there is a little list of the most latest postings that I've put up. And so the ones I mentioned already are in there, but I put up yesterday a little blurb about the book, and there's links to buy it. There's, to Amazon and so forth. So they can go there and find out a little bit more about it.
Well, very good, Sherry. Thank you so much for being on the program today. And again, people can find out more by going to rejectedparents.net. And there are other places. For instance, your book is probably also on Amazon and the like.
Yes, and I do want to mention, too, for people who are maybe hearing about this for the first time and suffering through an estrangement and looking for other people to talk to, every year at rejectedparents.net in the peer support forum there, which people can find by clicking on community, and they do have to register if they want to participate, but it is open to be read. Usually we have some sort of a virtual holiday party, and so people come and talk, and so there's always people there talking on the holidays themselves. And at the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/rejectedparents, that there's always people on there talking on the holidays. So, it's a good place to turn. And there's also a lot of articles that I've written at that site over the years about the holidays, because really we've just touched the surface today. There are so many things that people wonder. Should I buy gifts? There's all kinds of questions that come up. So there are a lot of articles and resources for them at the website.
Well, Sherry, again, thank you for being on the program today and reaching out again. This has affected a lot of people, and it certainly is a big community. It's amazing, especially when we put that out there from our last interview, just how many people are talking about it. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yes, it is amazing, isn't it?
It is. And when you realize that you're not alone in this whole thing and that, no, you didn't do anything wrong or, whatever the case is, move forward and start doing the right things for yourself, just like what we've been talking about here today, Sherry. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me, Dan, and happy holidays to you.
You too. Absolutely. Okay. All right. We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for joining us. You can discover more at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. We encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter. Keep up to date with what's going on in the world of Beyond 50 as well as our upcoming shows. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.